So I was off for a week just because, me. And everything in the world happened. So let's get into it. Unfortunately, we got more murder, possibly freeing Britney, and a Netflix series that's taking over the world right now. So without further ado, let's roll the intro.
I got problems on problems on problems on problems on problems on problems I solve them. I run through the money, the pressure be calling. Left on my blessings, I feel like I'm falling. The birdie is back. Tell me I'm garbage, I'm going through something, that's why I ain't calling. Phone in progression, it's all that I wanted. The phone in affection, I summon and dub it. Cause I got problems on problems on problems on problems on problems on problems I solve them. I run through the.
Welcome back to another episode of the Problems on Problems podcast. I am your host, Mike Santi, and this week we've got a lot, and we'll just get right into it with the Gabby Petito case. For those of you that don't know, don't have social media, don't watch the news or anything like that, a van life vlogger, Gabby Petito, was reported missing on September 11th. What later unfolded was a very strange timeline and what seems to be either neglectful or malicious timeline that really results in a manhunt that's still going on today. So for that, we're going to give you a timeline. We'll go through that, and then we'll let you kind of draw your own conclusions. But in July of 2021, Gabby Petito and her fiance Brian Laundrie set out on a cross-country tour of, all the national parks, living in their van. The thing that young people do nowadays. I mean the van part, not the traveling across the country and all that stuff. But so they left Long Island on July 4th, July 2nd, something like that. And they were basically going to document this whole thing on her Instagram post, YouTube channel about it, and kind of, document their stops like any young person would do nowadays along their journey. Plus, half the places they were going are very video friendly or videographer friendly, Instagram friendly, that kind of stuff. And a little disclosure is that all you need to know is that like Gabby would constantly post along their stops, constantly talk to her family, all that type of stuff. On August 12th, so basically a month or so into their trip, the Moab police in Utah responded to a domestic dispute call in which the caller claimed that he saw the two, Brian and Gabby, in a confrontation in which Brian hit Gabby, which I don't really. That's my neighbors leaving because it's morning time and people are going to work. I don't really know. It's red flag number one is that there's a domestic dispute and police are called out to the scene. Gabby is seen crying and visibly very upset, as if crying wasn't enough to be visibly upset. And then during Brian's interview with police, he basically like shrugged it off, did the whole like, oh, women, they're crazy, blah, 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 which we'll talk about that later. And so nobody was arrested that night, but police did say that they recommended that the two not stay together that night, that Gabby checks into a hotel, Brian stays in the van, that kind of thing. On August 19th, so a week later, the first video of this video series, Van Life, was posted to Gabby's YouTube channel, in which the couple were seen pretty happy, smiling, hugging, all that stuff. And then on August 24th, Brian and Gabby were both seen leaving a hotel in Salt Lake City, Utah, and the next day was her last post on Instagram. And I'm giving you all the cliff notes, like there's so much going on, especially with an ongoing case. There's a lot of intricacies of this, and really the fact that like the internet was responsible for what's to come. And I say that it was the last post because it was the last post that was posted to her page, but things started to not seem like they were normal. Gabby's mother had received a text asking her to help Stan. I keep getting his voicemails and missed calls, which for those of you that don't know, Stan is Gabby's grandfather. The weird thing about it is that her mother, who constantly talks to Gabby, said that she would never call her grandfather by his first name. So that was already red flag number 2. I doubt the parents knew about the domestic dispute call. So this might be red flag number 1 in their minds, but something was definitely off. Later on that week or later on in that month, of August, a TikToker posted about picking up a hitchhiker who was Brian Laundrie, and he was alone, which, again, very alarming, especially when you're like, hey, what's going on? Like, there's a couple that set out on this cross-country trip. Why is one person of the couple just hitchhiking alone? After the TikTok, on August 30th, Gabby's mother received another what she would call weird text, in which all it said was basically no service in Yosemite. And the thing that did spark some concern is that along their journey, along their route, that Yosemite was not the next national park that they were supposed to go to. They were supposed to go to the Grand Tetons National Park. It was just weird because they were not where they were supposed to be, if we want to say that. Then, September 1st, Brian returns home to his parents' place in Florida where Gabby and Brian stayed. Background, I know I said they left from Long Island, New York. Gabby's from Long Island. Brian's father has a business on Long Island, so it's not that weird. Plus, a lot of Long Islanders end up going down to Florida to retire or do whatever. But yes, Brian returns to his parents' house where he and Gabby stayed, and he's alone, which is already very concerning. Like, so we're at August 25th was her last post. August 30th was a very weird text message about not getting service in Yosemite. And then September 1st, so August 30th, you're in Yosemite. Van, mind you. August 1st or August 30th, you're in Yosemite, or supposed to be not getting service in Yosemite. September 1st, you made it from Yosemite National Park all the way to Northport, Florida. Like, it's already looking weird. And then it wasn't until September 11th that Gabby's mother reported her missing. So all this stuff, I mean, I'm outside looking in, it's looking bad, but we're going to keep going and try to give you as much as much objective information as possible. So it wasn't until September 11th that Gabby's mother reported her missing to local police. And in which case, this was already weird because if her fiance, who had returned literally 2 weeks prior, still hadn't reported her missing or anything like that, very weird. And Gabby's mother hadn't heard from her since basically August, and which is also weird because like they talk all the time. Around mid-September, so we're already September 11th, so a few days later, police named Brian as a person of interest, not a suspect. And the difference, at least to my understanding, is that like, hey, person of interest is just like, we think you have information about what happened, so we would like to ask you. We don't think that you were responsible for it or that you're a suspect in this. We just think at this point that you have information that nobody else knows about what's going on. And on top of that, Brian and his family were significantly less cooperative than anybody would hope for, in the sense that when police went to Brian's family's house or Brian's parents' house, they asked, hey, can we talk to him about Gabby? And they said, Brian doesn't have anything to say. You're going to have to speak to our attorney, which, I don't know, what are we at? Red flag number 3 or 4 at this point, maybe 5, that, hey, you came back alone without your fiance, in which you guys went cross country. You're back at your parents' house with her van, and she's not here, but you don't want to talk to us. But far be it from me to understand whatever the fuck the process is. September 17th, Brian is reported missing. Brian's family says that he's missing after he had gone to some national park in Florida. Gabby's parents are not buying that at all, and they don't say that Brian's missing. They say that he's hiding. And what sparks is a manhunt, at least a local manhunt, in which sheriff's deputies, local police, God knows what other agencies and authorities are searching for Brian. September 19th, 2 days later, authorities find remains near the Grand Teton National Park where the van was last seen. And the part that's very interesting about this is that like the tip about where to search came from another vlogger who was editing video of his time around that national park and saw the van, like saw the coverage going on about this missing person, this van, this notorious white like traveling van, saw it in his footage of him and his travels, and reported it to police. And I honestly don't think that without that they would find the remains, but remains were found in that they believed were Gabby. Yeah, so on September 21st, after Gabby's remains that's not true, September 19th, her remains are found. On September 20th, the next day, the FBI raid the Laundrie home, and they seize a lot of things. They seize hard drives, cars, equipment. They don't let people in or out of the house unless it's under specific guidelines. They basically go through this entire residence. The FBI, now the FBI being involved, this is a big problem, as if it wasn't already. But yeah, this keeps going on. And so the 21st, they raid the 20th, they raid the entire house. On September 21st, the FBI takes over the investigation when the remains that were found in the Grand Teton National Park were connected to Gabby. Once that connection was made, FBI took over this case, and it became a lot bigger thing, as it should. Then we move on to September 23rd, in which Wyoming police issue an arrest warrant for Brian for the unauthorized use of a debit card. The debit card, if you can guess, is Gabby's. And that's literally the only concrete crime that they have so far to submit an arrest warrant for this man who is now still missing somewhere near or around Florida, if it's even that close. And so the whole case behind that was that Brian used Gabby's card in excess of over $1,000 in withdrawals and transactions. Obviously, it's not yours, and it's 2 days after the remains. 2 days after these remains were confirmed to be your fiance's, which is already another red flag. What are we at? Red flag counter. I don't know. Red flag number 7, 8, 9. I don't know what it is. And till this day, so far, Brian Laundrie's still missing. There is a national manhunt, I guess, at this point, particularly around the Florida area. They've brought in bounty hunters. If you didn't know, they brought in Dog the Bounty Hunter for this. And so this thing is wide open, and it feeds more into the true crime kind of, I guess I'm also doing it. It feeds into the true crime kind of narrative right now that everybody's obsessed with. In my opinion, that motherfucker did it. That piece of shit for sure did it. The only way, and this, I guess, side tangent if we want to go there, the only way that this would be in some form acceptable is if literally this was some weird case of self-defense, and in which case I don't think it was any case of self-defense. Number one, police do better. Like, you got called out to a domestic disturbance in which a witness claims, or a witness says, that they saw one person strike another. Guy, girl, does not matter. If you're in a relationship, there should not be any kind of physical violence going on. Unless consensual, we'll talk about that later. Never. But yeah, that's to respond to that and then end up being like, oh, you guys should just like cool off, take it easy, and no arrest being made. That could have stopped something. The fact that, like, without the internet, you maybe would not have found this person because there are like millions of eyes on this case. There's millions of theories, which make it that much more complicated for the authorities to actually do their job properly. But yes, the carousel of more information, more conspiracy theories, all that stuff kind of just led to this, an overwhelming evidence bay that then led to the ability for authorities to find remains, them connected to Gabby, and kind of go from there. What I don't understand on the Laundrie case is I think his parents were in on it, if we're going to throw out theories, in the sense that if my son ever comes home from a trip that he left with his fiance that lives there, and he comes home alone, and we're either talking about it, or I find out that she could be dead, you're going to jail. You're going to jail immediately. Apparently, I did such a shitty job as a parent raising you that you murdered somebody, and in which case you need to be punished to the full extent of the law and pay the consequences of the monster that you are. I fucked up, but we're not going to keep this trend going. And so for them to harbor basically a criminal, and this is all alleged and theoretical, but for them to harbor a criminal, it's not a good look. It's not a good look overall, and it's sad that it makes it to a point where an individual has to lose their life in order for some action to be taken. And even then, it feels like it's almost too late until this man is caught. I mean, she was reported missing it's September, at the moment of this taping, it's September 30th, and he still hasn't been caught. So be that as it may, we're trying to find out what happened to Gabby and what actually went on during that trip. But there's no real way to segment into anything else. And honestly, I've taken up most of your time. So let's just do clips of the other news that we were going to talk about. We'll get into the debate, all that good stuff. But number one, Squid Games. Oddly enough, another fatal attraction, if you want to call it that, for people and viewers all over the place. If you don't know, it's Netflix's new star child, in which 456 people in South Korea receive invites to play this game that has fatal consequences for those eliminated in an attempt to win a lot of money to get them out of all their debts that they have in life. It's all centered around childhood games, but it's adults that are in desperate need of money to play these childhood games. So who knows what's really going on. And in other news, after 13 years and months of very contentious court cases, Jamie Spears has been suspended as conservator of Britney Spears' estate. Britney Spears' estate? Who knows? We don't have time for that. That's all you got to know. The Free Britney movement took a dub today, or yesterday, technically, when I'm filming this. Took a dub yesterday and got it closer to her having somewhat of autonomy and freedom, which for those of you that haven't been following the case, we'll talk about it a little bit later. But the fact that her dad has had conservatorship over her finances and really over her entire life, although she's still working and physically her work pays for his salary and all that stuff, it was always something very weird going on with that. And the fact that he's now been suspended gives us a little bit of hope. But with that, we'll take a break. We'll come back. We'll talk about the debate, what you guys talked about chicken last time, some follows, and then we'll get you guys out of here.
P.O.P. all the time.
And we're back with the great debate. Because I'm running out of time, I'm just lazy. I don't want to keep filming an extra segment. Last week, we talked about chicken. How do you prefer your chicken? Or 2 weeks ago, how do you prefer your chicken? Dark meat, white meat? Which do you like? 51% of you said dark meat. I appreciate y'all. Of course, it was going to be a 50 or really close to a 50-50 split. It's chicken, you know? I mean, most of us love chicken. I'm going to stick to the dark meat. There's more fat content in there. It's more flavorful. White meats, struggle chicken when you've messed up or overcooked white meat. I feel like it's a lot harder to do on the dark meat side. So I'm going to go dark meat. But this week, I mean, really, because the theme has been murder for the last 2 weeks, or death. Would you rather know how you die or when you die? I still don't have an answer. To that, so we'll see what happens next week. But yeah, would you rather know when you die or how you die? Let me know in the comments. Let me know in the polls, and we'll get it cracking. And from there, that brings us to the Friday follows. Honestly, we might change this name because who knows if I still post on Fridays, TBD. But the first one is going to be Deli Street and Friends. This is an event that happens first weekend of every month at Deli Street, over off of Central Avenue. I'll post the address down below, but there's a bunch of artists, vendors, every first weekend of the month, which is this weekend. You can go there, see all their artwork, see all their products, see what they have available. You can follow them at Deli Street and Friends on Instagram. And the next follow is going to go to Queen City Bites and Crafts. These guys have a personal spot in my heart, mainly because they are across the street and really across the walkway from Upper Deck Hooligans, which is the Charlotte Chelsea bar here, where I watch all Chelsea games, especially during weekends and stuff like that. But they've got everything. They've got food any time of the day. They've got drinks legally any time of the day. Wine, cocktails, all that good stuff. Make sure you go follow them at Queen City Bites and Crafts on Instagram. But with that, guys, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to the Problems on Problems YouTube channel. Don't forget to follow us at Problems on Problems Podcast on Instagram, at Problems_pod on Twitter. I don't even think I still use that anymore, but it's still there. I still have it. Go follow me. And per usual, follow your boy at Mike Santi 18 on all social media. But like I always say, guys, if it's not a good time, hope it's a good story, and I will see you next week.